Hello and welcome to the Red Bra Project. I'm Renee and I'm your co-host, your only host tonight here. I'm flying solo again. Shauna couldn't make it, but she's going to be so excited to check out our episode. We have an amazing guest with you today, here for you today, and she's going to share some pretty cool stuff. So she was introduced to us from a former guest, Hallie Aviola. We love you, Hallie. Thank you for connecting us. Another incredible Red Bra Project guest. But welcome to episode number 69. And today we are here. Yeah, I thought you would like that. And today we are here with the amazing Lena Dolter. Lena's here. She's going to tell us a little bit about her story, her unique work that she does that is very woman-centered, and it's so important. And I think we're going to learn more about the importance of that today. But Lena, welcome. Tell us a little bit about where you're coming from and how you're doing today.
Hi, and how are you, everybody? Where am I coming from? So I'm in the center-ish of the United States. I'm in St. Louis, Missouri, currently. And how am I doing today? I'm feeling pretty good. I was just telling Renee that I wish the sun was out. It's like a dreary, dark, like gray winter day here, but I'm excited to be here, and I love having these conversations. I love what you all are doing with the Red Bra Project, and I'm just excited to share part of my story and connect with those who can relate. So I'm happy. Thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you for joining us. It's so exciting. And whether it's cold outside and kind of, it's kind of getting into that crummy season, for me, I'd rather be hot than cold. But your setting is nice and warm and vibrant anyway. So it's cozy.
Thanks. I'd rather be cold than warm or cold than hot, because I can always put on more clothes, but I cannot ever take off enough if I'm hot. So, yeah. That's just how I operate. But I know plenty of people who would rather be hot than cold. So I get it. It's not that I like it. It's just that I feel I have more control over getting warm than I do over getting cooler.
Yes. And plus, if you're sweating profusely and there's not really anything else you can do about it, it is what it is. So.
Yeah, it's just uncomfortable. Yeah.
That thought, we're going to dive right in. And so, Lena, you have so much that I think is part of your backstory, and you have an incredible mission and work that you're doing right now. And so Lena is a mentor, a coach, an energy worker, a healer. I mean, all of the above. But tell us a little bit about your story and how you got into the work that you're doing today.
Yeah. So I work with women to help them break free from the amplified overwhelm that comes with PMS, and align them with the energy of their cycle so that they are more in harmony, in flow, if you will, more often, right? Instead of like going, and then getting hit. And, the longer version of my story is that, well, which do you want, the longer version or the short version?
I like the longer versions.
Okay. All right. So the longer version of my story is that, so I grew up a chubby kid. I didn't really know I was chubby because I was happy and joyful and doing me, like what we all do when we're younger. We do ourselves really easily until we learn that it's not okay. And when I was running out the doors from recess or to recess one day, I was in 6th grade. And I must have had shorts on. It was hot out. You're just like running to go play. And a friend called me Thunder Thighs as I was running down the hill. And in the moment, I don't know that I know, and I'm a highly sensitive person. I don't remember being affected by it immediately, but I do remember very clearly thinking, gosh, that's so weird. And to this day, it always brings tears to my eyes because we didn't look that different, So I was like, oh, that's like, I didn't get it. So it was like, kind of like, heartbreaking because it was supposed to like allegedly my friend, and confusing because I didn't see that we were any different. And that just really launched me into this who would say mindset? Like the coach people will say mindset, but launched me into this phase of my life where I just then related to myself differently. And I didn't love what I looked like. So, I mean, we already are faced as women with these very intense and sometimes unattainable images of what we should look like. And when you realize or are made known or made like to believe that you are wrong or you don't look right or you need to look different, then it just amplifies, right, as you get older. So it just shifted my relationship with myself, and I became hyper aware of my looks. And I put a lot of emphasis on what that meant, right? So it's like you draw these conclusions where like you see the skinny girl who gets all the, the boys that like her. She's popular, right? She plays sports, all those things. And I was never that girl, like I lost like a lot of that baby weight when you're a kid, like you carry it with you. Some of us do. I did. When I went into high school and just like it started changing because my body changed, but I still had a hard time loving myself. Yeah. And so that's just kind of that was this, like the path that my life took to then, it's like my focus. It's why I'm so focused on body awareness, body love, cycle syncing, just like how you can connect to yourself on a more deep level so that you accept yourself fully, no matter what you look like. And it just doesn't become about that. It becomes about how you feel.
Yeah. And isn't that interesting that at that very young age of like 11, 12, sixth grade,
yep.
That is the very first impression. And that's the first time you had to deal with kind of a body image thing. And that is literally what rooted with you for the long run. And I can completely understand, as I'm sure many listeners out there can, think about a time when somebody made a comment and that person may not have realized it, or it may have been a little weird or offhand, and you walk away and you're still thinking about it, and years later you're like, I will never forget.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. Just, yeah, it does. It makes an imprint for sure.
It really does. Yeah. And so as you that sixth grade, so a lot happened between sixth grade and
right.
But when you initially started down your career path and kind of figuring out what you wanted to do and things, did you know that it was this work?
No. Okay. I knew that. So as I went through life, so I've been in sales my whole life, and up until 2 years ago, I was a pharmaceutical salesperson. I've always done things on the side, right? So like I teach Pilates, I teach yoga. I've always been intrigued by knowing myself better. So I've had my own therapy, and I'm a highly intuitive, like a gifted intuitive human, and I feel like as I went through this path, like each layer, and I wrote about it in my site, you had mentioned that, like yoga was kind of like this pathway for me to feel my body differently. So on the physical level, because I was never a sporty person, I didn't like to play sports and just wasn't my jam. Yoga made me feel like I could do something, right? Like it made me feel like I belonged in some way because my body did it pretty naturally. And I fell in love with it. And that I feel like that was just like this portal where it allowed me to go deeper into the process of just what my breath meant, how, what does it mean when I come into a pose? And this has evolved because I started practicing yoga over 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it's now just as part of my life. But so that happened. And then all the time I'm like in sales, I'm like have this side life going on where I'm like in the body, like tuning with energy, all that stuff. And as I went along the path, I had my own experience with a coach, a love coach. And I remember saying to her one day in one of our calls, like, oh, I'm PMSing. Like, I don't know. Like she was asking me to do something. I don't remember exactly what it was. And it wasn't hard. And it wasn't that I wasn't going to do it. It's just that intuitively I knew that it just didn't jive with where I was in my cycle. I knew nothing else. But when I said I'm PMSing, she was like, you can't use your period as an excuse. And so that really like kind of popped me open to be like, am I using it as an excuse? Or is there something really going on here that I'm aware of, but don't know, like, I don't know enough about, like, I'm not, like, I know it, but I don't know what's happening. Turned out to be the latter. And that's kind of how I got into this because, as a woman who works in the world, no matter what work you do, I truly believe that women have this blanket thrown on them that we need to perform like men. And we live in a world that celebrates toxic masculine stuff, like excess productivity, looking for the answer, really like, it's like, if you think about toxic masculinity, it's like performance is ranked higher than anything else, right? And I was overwhelmed. And because of the stuff that I experienced in my life growing up, I didn't trust myself. I felt like I would be wrong. And if I was wrong, I'd be shamed for it. So like all those things that came up. And when I got onto the path of my cycle, so many of those things started to heal because I was tuning in with myself on a totally different level.
Wow, that is really interesting.
Yeah.
How did you know, like, how did you even know that's what you should do? Or where did you start? It sounds overwhelming, but at the same time, it's like anything else, I'm sure, when you break it down. So what was your first step?
Well, my first step was the coach who then said that to me, sent me a picture of a book called Code Red by Lisa Lister. So if any of you out there want to check that out, you can. I think she has an updated version. And so I started with that, and it was just like this huge, like, clicks, lots of clicks. Like, I was very much, and I think, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you were saying earlier about PMS and stuff, but most women know when they're PMSing, or at least when their period is coming, because they notice that they feel different.
Yes, that is accurate.
And they don't like it. Yeah.
Or you just have like this crazy breakdown out of nowhere. You're like, what the hell's going on? And then you're like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. I understand.
Totally. Right. Because like I said earlier, like, we're in this society, and I know it's changing, but we're in this society where, the belief that we hold deep within ourselves, even if you don't feel like on a conscious level you absolutely do, because you're raised in this society, that you should be doing and working and going all the time. That your energy is the same as a man. And that is a crock of, can I swear here?
Mm-hmm.
It's a crock of shit. It's not true, but because we hold it, every woman I know makes the mistake of assuming that they have the same energy all month long, or that they can continue to do what they've been doing. It's just not true. And it becomes harder when PMS hits, or when you feel like that breakdown happens or comes, or your period comes and you have a ton of pain. It's harder to accept that, because the belief that is in you that's saying like, oh, I have to keep going, I have to like do all these things, doesn't allow you to be in a place where you can just like, oh, okay, like, this is just what's happening now.
You're like literally resisting it instead of flowing with it, hence the term flow. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Yeah. So that was the first level. Sorry, go ahead. So I read the book, and then I don't know, I gotta be honest. So I have a lot of natural tendencies, and I also have you heard of this unconscious competence? Mm-hmm. So I have this extraordinarily high level of just like things that I do because I do them, and it's like in me. So I have to work really hard to remember the steps that I take, because it's just up there in this intuitive lane. So then I think what happened is I was introduced somehow, found, I think it was Achintya Devi. And she is like this just goddess priestess, and she was part of this 3-team like goddess yoga retreat I was going on, and she had this moon chart. And so if you like, you can start like here's your cycle, the phases of the moon, like you start tracking when you start your period, and that's how you go, right? And I just did that for months to get a log, right, of like, here's my life in the concept of my cycle, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's the one thing women they miss. Like, they think tracking their period is just knowing when their period is coming, and it's just not. That's not at all what it means. There's so much more out there, and that's why I do the work that I do. So
very, very cool. So with tracking, like, I'm sure there are apps out there, or tools, or the places you recommend people just starting out. Like, I've never tracked. So if I were going somewhere, or one of our listeners where would we go first?
There's so many apps, you're right. And I choose Fertility Friend, and it's the one that I have all my clients use, because I find that it's the most I want to say in depth, but that's really not the right word. It's the most comprehensive, and you get the best vision of it. Like when in my small group program, Know Your Flow, we spend an entire lesson on what it looks like to sync with your cycle. Cause that's truly what I'm guiding women to do. Like as a mentor, I see myself as a guide to support you to harness your own energetic tools and then implement what you learn, right? Like, so that's the app that I would recommend. There are many out there, but they won't do you any good if you aren't actually using it. So that's where I would start.
Like most things, right? You can buy the tool, but it's just going to sit there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's good.
And I read, and it sounds so magical when you go through your site. And for all of our listeners, you have to go to Lena's website. It is so she has other parts about her story in there, but then also what her work focuses on. And you say once you align with your own natural cycle, nature, like in nature, everything in life changes for the better. And you mentioned work, life, love, food, exercise. And I mean, just to hear how full circle that is, I mean, that literally sounds amazing. I'm like, we can be in flow more. Everything can come at ease just from learning how your natural cycle moves.
Yes. Yeah. It's awesome. Everyone should do it. Yeah.
Sign me up. So
Yeah.
is that why you kind of transitioned out of your pharmaceutical sales role to do this full time?
Yeah. And, prior to that, I had been coaching women in love on the side. So I had said that I was working with a love coach for my own self. And then I became part of her team. And then I brought on my own clients and then just like was doing these kind of like dual worlds, right? Which is normal for some people out there, right? I think a lot of women that may be listening can relate to like, right? You're like trying to build something and, have something else going. So yeah, you asked me a question. Sorry, I think I went off.
Yeah. I was just curious if that's why you transitioned out of pharmaceutical sales to do your work.
Yeah. And what really happened for me is like as I worked for someone, I was teaching their practice, like their process. I just started to feel less and less aligned with what I wanted to do. And I didn't know for sure that this was going to be what it was. It just was always back there in this like very present state of like just the power of your period. There's just like things that people don't want to talk about, especially women. And most women just want to know how to stop the pain or how to not have PMS. And those are not like, no offense, I know, I get it. And like, I work with women who want to embrace it. Like, I can teach you, I can help you not have these symptoms, but the symptoms are actually a messenger for something that's off for you. It's, in your life. And that's the deeper work that I do. It's really like this that's why it's magical, because it's the gift that we have in our cycle. It literally is like earth regenerating. So like our bodies are made from earth, and as the seasons change outside, the seasons change within you. And if you are only focusing, like think about it, if you live in an environment or you're familiar with an environment that was only spring or summer all day, all year long, like at some point things would get too hot. Right? And it would affect the next season. And so that's why nature works in the way that she does. It's why our body works in the way that it does. Because if we only live in the seasons where we're amplified and external and doing all the things, that masculine kind of acceptance, then most women suffer from bad PMS and painful periods because they're burnt out. And it can show up in a lot of different ways, but one of those ways is PMS symptoms and painful periods.
So interesting. And I feel like we can go in like 5 different directions talking to you right now. So I keep jumping all over a little bit, but it's all coming together. So with that said, when you first started transitioning out, for some of our listeners who are maybe in a different career, but they want to do something else that they're feeling inside, you had to become a new master of what you were teaching. Am I correct? Okay. So what was that like? And then how did you start? I guess, from the coach that you were connected with in that book, but then did it just kind of snowball from there?
It was like, so you said, so I was wanting to make sure I answer the question, not correctly, but like answer them. So the first one is, you said, how did I embody what I was teaching? Pretty
Yes,
much, right?
yes.
Like, what did I do?
Mm-hmm.
So I broke up with that coach. I just knew it wasn't the right, like, it just wasn't in alignment anymore. And I took time, and also it kind of came through too as I was coaching my clients. So my work is cycle related, but that's also connected to the wisdom that we get from our own self. So I said earlier, like, these messages, these symptoms are actually messages of parts of you that need to be healed. I also work with my clients on their inner child, right? Or their inner little girl, because we all have this part of ourselves. We actually have many different levels of that, because our experiences, what we experience at whatever age is kind of like there, it's like set in that space. Mm-hmm. So through that work and just like guiding them through that, it started to take shape of what I then grew, which is going into the cycle, but also my own awareness, like my own deeper level of what it meant to live in alignment with my cycle. Mm. And like that continues to up level, right? So there's like many different stages. Like the first stage is like even just acknowledging that you have a period, right? Instead of ignoring it. Then that's stage one, being open and willing to bring that, like, accept that you are a woman and this is what happens. Mm-hmm. And then the next level would be, looking at, okay, how can I work with this? What's showing up for me? Why is this happening? So just like along with tracking, you really want to ask yourself questions like, how do I feel? What is my energy like? We can go into that later if you'd like. And then, for me, it was just implementing into my life so that I knew when everything could go to shit, mm-hmm. and how to not have that happen. So it's definitely a harmonizing experience, and requires or asks you to, how would I say, like, not only be open to doing things differently, but being willing to literally be in flow, because there are things that will happen in your life that will, because life impacts cycle, cycle impacts life. They are just like, there's no way around it. But when you know what's happening in your cycle and how you respond at certain times of the month, then you can implement tools and, like, I call them decode, and, go in and take care of it before it happens or while it happens, so that you're not just totally then in a major detour until the next time you start your period.
Mm-hmm. Wow. It's so cool. So neat. Yeah. How, so if a client wants to come and work with you, do you offer different programs, or is it just one course, or is it one-on-one? What does that look like as far as options?
Yeah, totally. So currently I offer private, so one-on-one with me, and then also a small group program, which we just ended like last week. So that'll start again next, I think in January. Yeah. So, and that's just it's an 8-week process in which, and this is liberty to change, by the way, but basically it's all about getting into it's the basics of knowing your flow. It's called Know Your Flow. Mm-hmm. And it goes through each week, each phase, each season. Those are all the same, of course, but I call them all the different things. What the energy of that season is, how you can work with it, what the shadow of that season is, and what to do to take care of yourself. So just like I said earlier, when life throws you lemons and you need to a life edit, you can come back and get reharmonized because you know what you need to do to take care of yourself. And that's where I support my clients.
Oh, that's such an incredible tool. I feel like that's a tool that we all need to learn in middle school when we all start first having our periods to better understand them. Yeah. My goodness, that's crazy to think about. It just goes so much deeper than just, that's your time of the month,
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Very absolutely. Cool. Yeah. And I didn't know that you did this, but I really loved learning that you work with your clients to kind of go back to that younger child, because as we were talking about through your own story, it's crazy how those things do leave an imprint on you, and they're so impactful. And reading through your information and things, I was curious. I'm sure you've thought about it, but if you could go back to little Lena in 6th grade and, share with her some of older and wiser Lena's wisdom, what would you say?
Just like how beautiful and joyful she is. Like, keep your joy, and just be you. feel like that's the biggest message that anyone could give as a gift. Because the older we get and the more life experience that we have, and the more they're told to do things according to somebody else, I think the more we get stripped away of our own essence. So like, let yourself shine would be my biggest piece.
Yeah. I love it because I can identify with that, because as a child, you look at children and they're so magical and they're so creative and they're just open, and little girls and little boys run around and play and laugh out loud, and will do cartwheels without their shirts on, and it's they don't know any better. And then all of a sudden it's like we all of a sudden become aware, body conscious, and others become that, and then it becomes a thing, and it's hard to erase that and go back as an adult to this magical, careless, joyful child. But that's all where we want to go.
Totally, right? Yeah. I see that. I hear you.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, that's awesome. So one of the things that I think I loved was how, I mean, obviously you've done some major things, from career pivots to different career paths to discovering and learning about yourself, and of course educating other women, which is so important. I know that everybody feels it, but how do you work through fear when it's in your face?
Okay, great question. I'm like going back to where I answered that question. Okay, so when fear is in my face, so first of all, I feel like it's really important to pay attention to where you feel it in your body, which is a practice that I continue to practice every day. Because fear is actually, again, it's like a messenger. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. I think there are a lot of messages out there from coaches, leaders in some way, where like fear should be overcome and all those things. And fear is normal, right? Like fear is pretty normal, and you're not a bad person if you're scared of something, and you don't have to like push over it if you're like, it doesn't feel right. So for me, it's just really paying attention to where it is in my body. So if I feel fear and it's in my chest, then I know that it's simply anxiety, and I just have worry about it. That's the thing that I carry from my childhood. Just like worry is a ingrained little tool that my inner little girl does really well. So if I feel it there, I'm like, okay, then I know what to do, and how to handle that. If it's like gut, which I felt before, then I know it's like, this is off. Something is off here. This is like alert, evacuate the situation, right? Or whatever it is. It's just like, this is true inner wisdom. And so paying attention, knowing where it's coming from, and then addressing it. So if it's like I said, if it's in the chest and I know it's just because this other part of me or a past experiences, I'm just worried about what would happen, then I just have those conversations with myself. I may sit in meditation. I may take a little nap. I may journal, what I'm feeling. And then I just come back to it, and I decide and move through it from a place of conscious awareness rather than like pushing through it.
I see. And rather than being too quick to make a choice on which way to run, you try and listen in and see what it really is.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes total sense.
Lack of, less impulse, less reactivity, right? More response.
Which is definitely a learned
oh my God,
behavior for some of us.
But yeah, and I feel like for everybody, right? Like, even though that's like in the highest of ideal situations, that's what's happening, doesn't mean I don't react. It just means that when I remember, then that's the process. So yeah.
Slow down, rein it back.
Exactly. Yeah.
Talk to me about some of the women in your life that empower you and that have been role models for you.
Yeah. So I wrote down, like, I remember feeling that, I was like, my mom. I feel like all moms everywhere really should be heralded. And, especially those moms who are like, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. But that didn't, like, she's the home keeper, right? She's like the goddess of the house, right? And that work can go unappreciated, or like unappreciated, underappreciated for sure. There's like a lack of respect in our society for women who take care of the home. And that's sucks. And I would love for it to shift and change, because it also affects how women feel about themselves, right? There's like this blanket of shame that comes on that. And, you know, sometimes like it can be a choice that you make consciously, like for the good and well-being of your family. And sometimes it's a choice that you make for other reasons, right? So my mom is she's such a kind, loving woman, and reminds me to take care of others. Even though like it's part of what I do, it's part of who I am, she kind of like up levels it. So that would be that's a woman that I see as inspiration.
Yeah.
And Brene Brown. Brene Brown. So both, you know, I'm kind of obsessed with Brene. I feel like she's amazing. Every time I see her speak, I'm like, she's speaking my language. And so I find everything that she writes I can relate to it. Her podcasts and who she talks to and the questions that she asks is just like really, I always get into her. I love her.
Mm-hmm.
It's always something I can learn from Brene.
Yeah, I agree. I agree on both examples, and especially with moms. And I mean, that's one of the hardest, if not the hardest jobs. And I mean, you're right. The underappreciation is there. And that's a big job.
It's a huge
running
job.
the household and, you know, everything with the children. It's just,
I mean, I really do not know how most women, I really don't know how they do it without help. Like literally bow. I mean, like for real.
Yeah. And careers and everything else, all the other hats.
All the things.
Yeah. All the things. I agree. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do it and learn more about what you offer and kind of if it's the right fit for them? I mean, obviously, if you're a woman, that's the first start. But
first step. So I really love, like full disclosure, my favorite social media platform is Instagram. You can find me there at Lena Dolter, super easy. And my website, lenadolter.com. I'm not sure about what I'm going to do with my Facebook group right now. So if you see it in that doesn't matter. We'll just like leave it simple. Yeah. Find me on Instagram. We may or may not cover this. You tell me, like, if you want to get in my email community, then I'll invite you to take my online quiz, which is an amazing little quiz that'll help you use your cycle to manifest what you want. And you can just go there. Is that okay to share?
Yeah, please do. So
it's just lenadolter.com/quiz. That's it.
Perfect.
It's a pop-up on my site right now. It just, so if you go there to lenadolter.com, it'll pop up, but it's also linked in my Instagram and I share it, in my posts or whatnot. But it's a great way to get into my community and be in the know with what's coming up. And if you're social media, I say Instagram all the way. We'll connect there. I look forward to seeing you there and connecting with you there.
Cool. So that quiz is kind of like the first stop shop to see if somebody wants to learn more or if they're really interested or if they just like the sound of it. So
yes, absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So, Lena, we ask all of our guests, and this changes. It changes day to day, but the red bra is something that you wear underneath. You know that it's there. It doesn't have to be shiny on the outside. Some are. It doesn't, it's your style. You do you. So what is a time in your life when you've looked back and you're like, man, I am so proud of myself for doing that, or I can't believe I did that and got through it. I really dug deep. I had my red bra on, and on this other side, that was freaking amazing. And I'm going to remind myself of that the next time I go through something tough.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Mm-hmm. So I will share a recent relationship experience. So I was in this lovely relationship and his dad died out of nowhere, which sucks, right? In a lot of ways. And he needed some time and took his time and whatnot. And we ended up not rekindling, not reconnecting. And it was painful. But when I look back and just see how I went through the layers of, okay, like I can love and not, how do I say it? It's like to have allowed myself to love someone and let them go, just let them go. The power of my own self-love that got me through that, and the courage that it took to just be with the parts and the times that were confusing and painful and all the things that can come up when a relationship is over. I look at that and I just am like, I am in such awe of the degree to which I loved myself through a really painful, heartbreaking moment.
Wow.
So,
That's
yeah.
huge. That's huge because just in that share, which thank you so much for sharing. And it's a mixture of happy and sadness. And I feel that. I'm so sorry about the sad parts. But to hear you say that, it's like you recognize how far you've come to be able to get through that point right there, which is massive.
It's huge.
Oh my God, I love it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me share that. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we wrap, we close all of our shows with a quote for our guests. So the one that we picked out for you is the three C's in life: choice, chance, and change. You must make a choice to take a chance or your life will never change.
Mm,
Unknown. And so I feel like there's a lot you can unpeel with that one. But yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. I
Yes.
love it.
Thank you so much for joining us. Gosh, you are so amazing. And this is such a unique and interesting topic. I know that I'm going to dive deeper. So
Thank you.
you're
Thanks for
welcome.
having me.
You're welcome. And thank you to all of our viewers who tuned in. If you know somebody who would appreciate Lena's story, please share with them. The power of a story is so incredible. We appreciate all of you for being here. If you don't already, follow us at the Red Bra Project on Instagram, because that's where we hang out too with Lena. Or you can go to theredbraproject.com and check all of our amazing guest blogs. So blogs are there, and all of the visuals, the videos, are on our YouTube channel. So thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to hit subscribe for reminders, and have a great night. Bye-bye.